Are you a woman over the age of 35, dreaming of love, marriage, and motherhood, but the wait has been longer than you expected? Welcome to the While I Wait podcast. I'm your host, Courtney Steele, and together we'll explore how to embrace this unique chapter of life. We'll transform this season of waiting into a journey of self-discovery, joy, and preparation to help us live life fully now while preparing for the love and life we desire. So let's dive in. There's so much to do while we wait. Welcome. You made it to episode 2. Thank you so much for sticking with me. You know, it's funny. My bachelor's degree is in broadcast journalism. So cameras and microphones, recordings and interviews, editing, none of this is new to me. I've worked in television news as an executive producer, and now I'm in the public relations, communications, and marketing field. So the logistics and technicality of this world isn't foreign to me. However, in every role, I've served in the background and made sure everyone else looked good. In television, I made sure my anchors were on point. I made sure they looked good and they knew what was going on. I looked out for my reporters and even the newscast itself. I sat in the booth behind the scenes with the director and other technicians, and it was my job to make sure everything went off without a hitch. At least to the viewers at home. When I moved into the public relations field, my job is to make sure whoever I represent is shown in the best and most positive light possible. My role often allows me to serve in the background, making everyone else look good. And I like it that way. I don't have to be in the limelight. I don't have to be front and center. That is until now. Now this is my podcast. My name is literally on it. It's me on the mic and my voice in your ear. It's my face and my words, thoughts, and ideas. It's my story that I get to tell and share with you. And I'm excited to do so. This is definitely different, but it's a good different. For once, I can think and write for myself and not for someone else. This podcast allows me to bring my thoughts and ideas to life. So it's definitely a transition, but a fun one for me, and hopefully for you too as we continue this journey. While I Wait is an active and interactive guide for us women as we live and thrive and better ourselves in our current single season while we prepare for our next. Waiting sometimes is like a passive term. It seems like we're just sitting and waiting idly for something to happen. But you do know that waiting is active, right? How many of you have said you're just waiting on the Lord? You're waiting on the Lord to bring you your husband. Yeah, I've said that too. Well, last year, my pastor, Brian Horn of Recreation Church in Athens, Georgia, he said something that really struck me. He said that when we say we're waiting on the Lord, it's actually nowhere in the Bible in the context of how we typically say it. He said when the Bible refers to wait, as in Isaiah 40 and 31, quote, those that wait on the Lord, end quote. He said the Hebrew word for wait is the same word that would be used to describe a waitress who would put a towel over their arm and come to your table and actually serve you. He said wait is an action verb. It's not a sitting and be still word. It means to serve and to be busy doing the last thing God told you to do until God fulfills the promise he said he would fulfill. I'm going to say that again. To wait means to serve. It means to be busy doing the last thing God told you to do. So Pastor Horn posed the question. So what if I told you while in your waiting, what you think is inactive and being idle, that God is actually waiting on you to do the last thing that he told you to do? So, what are you doing? What is the last thing the Lord told you to do? For me, it was to start this podcast. The Lord first placed this podcast on my heart in April of 2024. I remember it like it was yesterday. I didn't go home for Easter, nor did I cook an Easter meal, so I didn't have Easter dinner. However, a friend of mine at the time brought me a plate that she shared with her family during Easter. And it had some delicious food on it. I don't remember everything, but I specifically remember the plate having fried chicken and oxtails. So I put the plate in the microwave and I'm doing my little, I can't wait to eat dance in front of the microwave. And I think to myself, I've never actually fried chicken or made oxtails myself. I might need to learn how to do that before I get this husband I'm praying for. I said, well, maybe that's something I can do while I wait for my husband to find me. And I heard it. And I remember it. The words echoed in my mind: while I wait, while I wait, while I wait. And there's this downpour of thoughts and ideas and visions that I had for the saying while I wait. And that's how this podcast came to life. It was really exciting, and I couldn't believe how many things came to mind. I had to go actually record a video to document everything I was seeing and remembering. But it was actually an answer to a prayer that I'd kind of prayed a couple months prior. You see, in February of 2024, I attended a wife conference led by two women, wives, and mothers whom I love and cherish deeply. The conference was amazing as they spoke to married and single women alike. I left the conference feeling inspired, motivated, and recharged. I loved every minute of the conference. But as I drove home, I remember thinking, that was great, but I wish I could see this story play out as it happened. I wish I could hear this story as someone is going through, as the story is being written, when we don't know how the story is going to end, and we have a real time look at how things are handled, emotions are handled on a regular basis. You see, a lot of women talking today, they only tell their story after they've married their husband and had the kids and have the whole fairy tale life. But what about when it hurts and you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel? When the doubt starts to creep in and the naysayers are getting inside of your head. And I'll make it personal, when I begin to lose hope. How do I keep going and believing when I'm not sure the Lord is going to give me the desires of my heart? What does that really look like? Now, 2 months later, he gives me the idea for the podcast while I wait, and it forces me to put my journey to becoming a wife on display. I wasn't trying to invite the Lord to dip into my little life and make me a Moses, but here we are. And little did I know, just under a year after attending that conference, that I'd be the person sharing their story. So, I guess you better be careful what you wish for, because you may not only get it, the Lord may use you to get it done. Now I'm happy to share my story and my perspective. If this helps someone navigate these single streets and avoid some of the mistakes I made and gain more confidence, then it's all worth it. You may be thinking, Courtney, if you got the idea for the podcast in April of 2024, why didn't it launch until January 2025? Simple answer: I didn't want to do it. I remember a week after the Lord gave me while I wait, I was driving down the interstate crying about doing this podcast. I came up with every excuse why I shouldn't do the podcast. I was a private person. I didn't want to share my personal life on a public format. I was worried that I would talk too fast, or that my voice would be annoying, that I didn't know what to do, that it would be too hard, that I wouldn't have time to be consistent. But I just told y'all I'm very familiar with this field, and I may not have the exact equipment needed just yet, but I can obviously get the job done. I was reminded I'm a fast learner, and I could learn to slow down while talking. See, nothing I mentioned was really major or impossible to correct. So I had to dig a little deeper, and what I found hit a little closer to home. I realized I was embarrassed by some parts of my story, and I knew that I might have to share it with others, and I really didn't want to. I was genuinely embarrassed and even mad at myself for some of the choices I made and things I allowed to happen. But again, that still wasn't quite it. While all of those things were a real concern, I knew there was more. So I dug deeper. Finally, after riding in my car for about 15 minutes with nothing but me, the country interstate road, and all the trees I drove by, I started crying. Lord, I'm afraid. I'm afraid that if I'm obedient and I actually start this podcast, that'll mean I have to stay in this season even longer than I am now. I don't want to extend this season by becoming the spokesperson for single women everywhere. I don't even want to be here. And I continued to cry. I was sobbing, actually. The tears really began to fall, and it's a wonder how I even stayed on the road. As a matter of fact, I know Jesus took the wheel because I don't remember seeing any other cars on the road. And if there were cars, I couldn't see them through my tears. So, after my episode, I began to calm down and dry my eyes so I could drive again. It felt nice to actually be honest with myself and know what I was afraid of. I rode in silence. Me, in the car, on the road, passing trees. Then a clear, calm voice interrupted my days. I heard the Holy Spirit say, clear as day, in a loving, compassionate voice, "Don't you know I know the desires of your heart? Why would I withhold something that is good for you?" Hmm. Wow. I realized this was an opportunity to use my story for God's glory. This was no longer just about me, and it was way bigger than me. I realized there were so many other people who were just like me that needed a podcast just like this. What a testimony this is going to be one day. When my husband finds me, all praise and glory will go to the Lord. How could it not? This is no longer my podcast, but the Lord's, and everything that happens to it, during it, and because of it would be because of Him. The weight had been lifted. And I see why people don't share the processes of their lives. What if it doesn't turn out like I want? But what if it does? Either way, I'm not worried about it. I'll be obedient, share my story, and we are all along for the ride. I've waited passively before, and I missed out on so much. I missed so much life. I felt like I was waiting and wasting away. Once upon a time, I was in a long distance relationship, and sometimes when we were apart, I would see a movie trailer, but I'd wait to see it so I could see it with him. Or I'd wait to go to a restaurant or an event because I wanted to experience it with him. I'd even buy clothes and save them for the next time I'd see him. Do you know how many movies I never got to see, restaurants and events I didn't get to experience, and how many clothes magically shrunk before I ever got to wear them? Now, this goes for friends too. You can passively wait for them to visit you or want to go somewhere with you, and everyone still has that group of friends whose trip still ain't made it out the group chat. Meanwhile, we sit, waiting, longing, moping around for something to do or something to happen. Thankfully, I didn't stay in that phase for long. I decided to stop waiting. And you should stop waiting too. Literally, stop with the passive, life is passing me by waiting. I started small and began to go places and do things safely on my own. My first place was the movies. I will never forget it. Well, I forgot what I went to go see, but I do remember it was a matinee and it was on a Tuesday. And because the tickets were much cheaper, I even bought myself some candy and a soda to go along with it. There were fewer people there, and once I got inside the theater, I couldn't even tell what time of day it was outside. I really enjoyed myself, and it wasn't that bad at all. So try going to see a movie or go to a restaurant by yourself. I enjoy sitting in booths versus a table, makes me feel a little less exposed, and I make an effort to not stare at my phone. Put it down. People watch. Enjoy the scenery. Enjoy your own company. And then, once your food comes, enjoy your meal. When you do this, you really don't look lonely if that's your worry or concern. I appreciate seeing women enjoying a meal or doing something by themselves. You look solid and confident, and we look like we enjoy our own company, so maybe someone else will too. I learned to be by myself and to be okay with it. I built the confidence to do things on my own. And every now and then, you get to strike up a conversation with someone you otherwise wouldn't. Ultimately, the goal is to stop passively waiting and to get active in your waiting. So, let's get back to the original question I asked a moment ago. What is the last thing the Lord told you to do? What is the thing you're supposed to be doing in this season? While this is a season of waiting and preparing, it's also a season of obedience. I knew I had to be obedient to what the Lord told me to do, not only with this podcast, but in other areas of my life as well. While all of this was going on and I was doubting myself and I didn't want to do the podcast, the day before I had my cry fest in the car, Pastor Byron Rito, also with Recreation Church, posted on Facebook about obedience. He said, "There is nothing better than being obedient to what God told you." He also posted, "Time and time again, we see in scripture that the ones who are obedient are the ones who flourish. Saul had good intentions, but because he wasn't obedient, his future couldn't be blessed." Then he posted 1 Samuel 15 and 55, New Living Translation, where it reads, "But Samuel replied to King Saul, 'What is more pleasing to the Lord, your burnt offerings and sacrifices, or your obedience to his voice? Listen, obedience is better than sacrifice, and submission is better than offering the fat of rams.' If you aren't obedient to what God said, how and why would he bless the work?" So again, my question to you is, what has God told you to do? What is the thing that you can only do, or you can best do right now in your single season? Let's get it done. Stop procrastinating, stop avoiding it, stop putting it off, start the business, move on that idea you have in mind, learn the new skill, get the degree. Now is the time. So I feel like I've told you a lot of stories this week, but it's just to let you know a little bit more about me and to share the journey of how this podcast came to be. In today's world of instant gratification and social media filters, we often miss the process of things coming to be. We miss the realness of day-to-day living. As I mentioned before, you will see the process in this podcast. You will see the podcast progress with the equipment and the setup and the quality, and you'll also see me progress in this season as a person and one day as a wife. I like to end each episode on a positive note. When I started looking up waiting in the Bible, it is often paired with the word patient, to wait patiently. I found these verses to be motivating and uplifting in times when I'm not so sure of the future. So, here are some of my favorites. These are all in the New Living Translation. Psalm 27 and 14. Wait patiently for the Lord. Be brave and courageous. Yes, wait patiently for the Lord. Psalms 37 and 7. Be still in the presence of the Lord and wait patiently for him to act. Romans 8 and 25. But if we look forward to something we don't yet have, we must wait patiently and confidently. Psalms 40, 1 through 3. I waited patiently for the Lord to help me, and he turned to me and heard my cry. He lifted me out of the pit of despair, out of the mud and the mire. He set my feet on solid ground and steadied me as I walked along. He has given me a new song to sing, a hymn of praise to our God. Many will see what he has done and be amazed. They will put their trust in the Lord. Habakkuk 2 and 3. This vision is for a future time. It describes the end, and it will be fulfilled. If it seems slow in coming, wait patiently, for it will surely take place. It will not be delayed. So, common theme here, wait patiently. Our time is coming. Don't give up. Don't lose hope. But let's continue to wait patiently by doing the things God has told us to do in this season. We are not passively waiting or wasting any more time. There are things to do as we prepare for our next. So, here's your homework. I told you this was an interactive podcast. Number 1, what is the thing the Lord told you to do? What's that one thing that you should be busying yourself doing while you're waiting? Number 2, make a list of all the things you want to do or accomplish during your single season. We're looking for those things that can only be done or best be done while you're a single woman. And number 3, think of one place you would go by yourself this week. It could be to the movies or a coffee shop or a restaurant. This is especially needed if you haven't done this before. Allow this to be a new experience for you. Be sure to be safe and let someone know where you're going, of course. Be out in public with other people, but not with other people. Your homework is due before the next episode drops. Be sure to like and follow the While I Wait podcast on Facebook and Instagram. Here, we can share some of the places we plan to go by ourselves and some of the goals we plan to accomplish during our single season. Thank you so much for joining me on While I Wait. If this mission resonates with you and you're eager to be a part of the Single Sisters Tribe, hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at While I Wait Podcast for daily encouragement, community connections, and exclusive behind-the-scenes content. I love to hear your thoughts and topic suggestions, so drop them in the comments. Stay tuned for the next episode where I'll bring on a special guest, and together we will debunk myths about singleness and highlight the unique freedoms and opportunities available in this season. And one update, New episodes will now release every first and third Friday. This is Courtney Steele signing off. Until next time, keep thriving.